Welcome to Hit or Miss. This is the series where I review anime, games, movies, TV shows, you name it. If it's something that piques my interest, I'm gonna review it. And today we are talking about Honkai Star Rail. Now, going into this game, I wasn't really coming in with any expectations. To be honest, my real expectation was to quit the game within about 30 minutes to an hour, maybe two tops, because I am a fan of Genshin Impact. That is where I started the little gacha gaming circle, and it's really as far as I've ever gotten because I still don't really like gacha games that much, but Genshin Impact is an exception. Now, coming into this, because MiHoYo, and I apologize if I said it wrong, I probably did, but knowing because they made this game as well too, I was willing to give it a shot just because, well, if I liked their last game, maybe I'll like this one too. And one of the biggest reasons that I was afraid I wasn't going to like it was just because, and this is the main part I'm pretty sure everyone wants to know about, is the turn-based combat. Now, despite me having the Persona Royal poster back there, that is really the only turn-based game I like, along with Yakuza 7, even though it had its own issues. But the point is, I'm not really a big fan of turn-based games, so coming into this, I was kind of like, well, I don't know if I'm really going to like this, but I am pleasantly happy to say that I actually enjoy this. This is not what I was expecting, the doom and gloom of, oh, I'm going to start this is going to be boring, this is going to suck. No, it's none of that. So the way the combat works is you have 7 elements in total, and here's how it works. Let's say my character has wind, and then the enemy character has wind. So then I use my character to attack them, and it's going to do a lot more damage because the elements match up. So when a wind character attacks an enemy that has a wind icon, and it deals a lot more damage to their break bar. Once you get their break bar depleted all the way, then the enemy has like 1 or 2 turns where they're just down completely, and then they'll restore their break bar all the way back up. If you want to call it a shield, you can call it that as well too. But the point is, you match the elements towards the matching enemies, and that's how you deal the most damage possible. In every battle, you get 4 characters, and each character has 1 main attack, 1 skill, and then 1 ultimate. It's not really a lot of variety, and I know that's something that a lot of people have been voicing their complaints and concerns over, which is they feel like the character should at least have 1 more skill, and I would kind of agree. It feels kind of very basic, if you want to call it, but I think for the target audience that this game is trying to go towards, it's not really a big downside either, but I can see where people are talking about. But on the bright side, there is at least one thing that I want to note that I wasn't sure of when I first came into this game, because I didn't look into any information about it. I knew there was betas, I knew that people have tried it all in the past, but I came into this completely blind. So one of the biggest things that this game helps to avoid fatigue, just because you're going to be doing so many fucking battles over and over and over, they have a system put in place where you can play the game at 2x speed, and there's an auto battle system. Now, the way it works is essentially, it's in the title itself, is auto battle. So you pretty much turn it on, you set 2x speed, and it just plays the game for you. You can go walk away. I've had times where I start it up, I do like my dailies, I turn it on, and then I go send someone a message, and then when I'm back, boom, it's done. And I had to do nothing. That was actually a game changer for me, because I'll be honest, if that wasn't there, I probably would have quit the game, because the normal battles just feel too slow, especially if you're going to be doing it all the time. But it is nice the very first time that you are doing it. So when you start the game up and you're playing through it, because it doesn't let you do it right off the bat, you have to kind of unlock the features later in the game as you progress. But it is nice before you do unlock it that you at least get to appreciate the animations, the voice work, because they do have it pretty interesting as well too. If you have games set on 2x, then the characters say different voice lines for their ultimates. I haven't really noticed it for skills, but I could just be misremembering it. But at least for the ultimates, if you play it on slow speed, you'll have one different version of their ultimate that plays off, and if you do the quick version, then it's another version. It's just pretty much shortened down, but you get the point. At least there's some variety to it. But that's one minor complaint I would have, is there's literally just like 1 voice line. They don't have anything else recorded at all. So you play on 2x speed for like the main character, they just say the same thing. Rules are meant to be broken. Rules are meant to be broken. Like, maybe something else, like one more line or something. Like, I hope maybe they add that in the future, but that's really the only complaint I would have towards that. But overall, I do think the combat is at least still varied enough to where you're not gonna, like, after 5 battles, you're like, oh, God, I'm tired of this. This is terrible. It's still interesting enough, and I believe that the longer you play the game, once you start getting to stronger bosses, you start going to the Forgotten Halls, which I'll get into more a little bit later. At least those are going to be the battles where you're really going to sit there and scratch your head and try and figure out, all right, which way do I want to play this? Which character am I going to want to use? Which buffs, which support, etc., etc. Like, that's where you're really going to start trying to figure out, all right, how am I really going to play this? That's where I think those who want some form of at least a system that makes you think about what you're doing, I think that's where the players who want like a sort of, I don't want to say it's like a super deep system, because it's not, but at least make you scratch your head a little bit while you play instead of just brain dead autoplay. That's where whichever of those type of players will enjoy it the most. Now, moving on to the narrative, I would say is actually really enjoyable. So the gist of the story is pretty much you wake up on a ship, you as the main character have a power to seal these things called Stellarons, and you end up joining this team as a trailblazer where you and your friends go world from world trying to save them from the active Stellarons that are currently on their planets or ships or worlds, and you try and seal them to prevent any more disaster from happening. Throughout playing the story, I didn't really have any moments where I wanted to skip anything. I was actually genuinely intrigued by how the story was progressing, and I was kind of curious where things are going next. I wouldn't say there was anything that blew me away. I was getting super sentimental. I was like, oh my god, this is so like, it wasn't really anything like that. I mean, I won't lie, there's like one scene in particular that kind of got to me a little bit, started slightly maybe tugging on my heartstrings, but for the most part I wasn't really bawling in the corner or anything like that. It was just, it was an enjoyable story for at least what's out so far. And in my opinion, having a story that's enjoyable and fun is ultimately what matters in the end. That's what I care about. And so if a story can do those two things, that's a win out of me. That's a 10 out of 10. And that's what this game has done pretty well so far. And on top of that, they've given each character a pretty good backstory, or at least they set up a really good narrative to make you wonder more about them, because they're either mysterious or it just leaves a lot of curiosity to want to know more about them. And the characters that they have given backstories for so far, they've explained it pretty well, and it's actually pretty intriguing. One more thing I would like to add as well is this game does really good on just dialogue in general. If you play Genshin Impact, then you know that that's kind of a sour point of the game, because it's just dialogue after dialogue after dialogue. It's just overwhelmed, and a lot of it is just unnecessary text. It feels like it's just fluffed up for no reason, and you get people that just want to skip it all day and just want to say, hey, come on, hurry up, are we done yet?
Why isn't his voice? I think they forgot.
Sometimes it gets a little bit out of hand, but I can say without a doubt that is definitely not Honkai Star Rail. This game does dialogue a lot better, at least in my opinion. And I like how self-aware it can be at times. You have dialogues where it's like, why are you looking at a street lamp? You sure you want to look at that? And then you keep on clicking, and it's like, come on, like, hey, that street lamp isn't going to do anything. You need to stop trying to interact with it. And then they create this backstory with your main character as if they're like some gremlin who likes to go in trash cans all the time. You might have seen the memes floating around on Twitter or Reddit where it's just the constant main character just going through dumpsters, because they have this thing set up in the game where every time you have a dumpster or a trash can, you can interact with it, and it gives you an option to go diving into it, and then you pull like an item out of it and shit like that. It's actually really enjoyable. And to add on top of that, they do have dialogue options as well. That's actually pretty cool. And the reason I say it's pretty cool, I know to some people this is like, wow, really, you're like this excited over it? I'm excited of it because I compare it to Genshin, and I have to compare it to Genshin because this is MiHoYo's next game. It's pretty much like a follow-up to Genshin, even though they're not exactly the same thing. It at least shows where they have come since they made Genshin. So that's the reason why I compare it to it a lot. Also because it shares a lot of the same systems. So dialogue is one of the sour points in Genshin. Obviously the writing has gotten better as time progressed, but there is still a lot of unnecessary dialogue, and some things in general they won't change. Like in Honkai, the main character has a personality. They actually, like, you can feel it through the text messages they send characters, the dialogue choices they give. Whereas in Genshin, your main character just kind of, it's like pretty bland options. So you don't really build any type of personality at all around your main character, other than, I guess, your own headcanon that you create in your mind. Now, moving into gameplay, if you've already played Genshin, then all of this is going to feel familiar. The ending game is pretty much the same. There's just a lot of quality of life changes that make things a lot more enjoyable, but I'll get to that in a second. So for those that haven't played Genshin at all, essentially what your end game of this game is going to be, once you finish the main story, the side missions, the companion missions, once you finish all of that, essentially what you're going to be doing is just the Forgotten Halls. You're going to be farming relics, light cones. That's it. That's pretty much what it is. The enjoyment that people find out of Genshin Impact was doing the Spiral Abyss, which is the Forgotten Halls for Honkai Star Rail, and that's pretty much it. You don't really have to do it. It's not necessary. I don't really know how the end game is going to be for this game long term yet, but at least for Genshin, you can completely ignore the Spiral Abyss, and you don't have to do it at all. And I feel like this is going to be the same way for Honkai. I don't really see why they would start making this a requirement all of a sudden. The whole point of these games is to actually appeal to casual fans. So to put something that could be really grindy, pretty hard, actually make you sit there for a long time and just make you want to quit, I don't see them making that actually like a mandate for anything long term in this game where you're going to really need to grind it out for gear or something that you're really going to need for your characters. It's not needed. Anything that you need, you can probably just pull from your pulls on your standard banner, your light cone banner, shit like that. And then, of course, that's where the gacha mechanic comes in, where you spend money if you want to get those characters. But I can say personally, you do not need to spend money at all. I didn't spend money in Genshin for like 2 to 3 years. I didn't need to. And the only reason I spent money was just pretty much to just get back to the game that I've been getting shitload of hours in, just because why not? If I've enjoyed the game and I haven't spent a single penny, why not spend 10 or 20 bucks once in a while on a battle pass and maybe some wishes and call it a day? It's a game, like I said, I got completely for free, and this game is completely for free as well. A lot of the characters they give you, such as the main character, Natasha, March 7th, etc., these are all viable characters that you don't even spend any money on. They just give it to you. Like, this game does pretty well on giving you a good set of free-to-play characters that you can build a pretty solid team with and not have to spend a single dollar with. And then if my memory is correct, this could be wrong, but the game at least gives you 83 wishes right off the bat. Not like right when you start the game, you get them all, but you can earn all those wishes without having to spend a single dollar. So you get 83 wishes, which you can spend on the standard banner, the character banner, which right now is seal, or you can do it on the starter banner, which guarantees you a 5-star. It should be a 5-star, correct me if I'm wrong, but it gives you a guaranteed 5-star after your first 50 wishes. So the game is pretty generous, especially compared to Genshin starting off. Maybe I'm looking at it through rose-tinted glasses, but there wasn't really that many great characters starting off in Genshin, so your wishes was pretty much just wasted having no L. If you were there at the beginning, then you know what I'm talking about. So for all my Genshin fans that are still watching this video that are not completely sold, you're still wondering, here are some changes from Genshin to Honkai that Redditor made in a comment a while back that I took a screenshot of, because these are a lot of the changes that are made, and I just want to share some of them right now. So one of the biggest ones being that the resin cap is 180 and it regens every 6 minutes, which equates to 10 per hour. This is much easier to keep track of. An example, you need 60 resin, you wait 6 hours. You can directly teleport to bosses and repeatedly fight them without waiting. That's actually a huge one. If you, the worst thing you could do in Genshin is you fight a boss and then you got to wait like a 1 minute or 2 minute or 2.5 minutes on some cooldown before you can fight it again. Weekly bosses only have one material that characters from their region use. No weekly boss material RNG. So essentially what this means is whenever you fight an enemy in Genshin Impact, you're not exactly guaranteed items that are going to drop. You fight the enemy and let's say hopefully you can get it, but you don't. It just shows you a list of items that you could potentially get, and if you don't get it, then once you get a certain amount of resources, then you can go to like the crafting machine and then try and turn into something that you can use for whatever weapon, artifact, relic, etc., that you wanted to ascend. You can use support characters from other players if you're struggling, so you can essentially use someone else's C6 seal and then one-shot bosses if you're lazy. Now, essentially what that means is, let's say I want to go do one of the, I guess we can call them domains. That's pretty much the best way to call them here, right? But they're called like catalytics or some shit. I can't remember all the names yet. But you do one of the missions where you can use your resin and you have an option to use support characters. So I can go through my friends list right now, be like, oh, all right, this person has a level 50 character. All right, I'm going to choose that and put it in my game. And then they can just body everything at all. And I don't even have to worry about having properly leveled characters because it just carries me through the whole thing. On top of that, it's also a great way to experiment with other characters that you haven't pulled yet, because the trial system in Genshin is just trash. It's not that great. You don't get to have your own team composition, so you can't see if one of the trial characters actually works well with your own team, unless it's actually part of the story and they let you trial it that way. So this is, I think, a great medium to be able to try different characters out, especially ones that are already maxed out, to see if maybe this is something you want to pull for in the future, maybe you want to drop money on, things like that. Also, this is a good one that I forgot to mention, but you get a free 5-star character of your choice upon making a 300 pulls on a standard banner. Now, don't get this confused with what I said earlier about the starter banner, which after 50 wishes you get a 5-star. This one is on the standard banner. I'll show a picture of it right now. But there are a certain amount of 5-star characters that are always going to be there, just random. Whenever you reach your 80 wishes, or after you reach hard pity, soft pity, whatever the case might be, the game gives you a 5-star or equivalent. And then that's where you hear people say 50-50s. They didn't get what they wanted. Let's say they got something trash, or they got a same character again. Well, with this, having a guaranteed 300 pulls allows you, without a doubt, to pick a character of your choice. So if you haven't had Clara yet, now you can get Clara. If you haven't had Bronya yet, now you can get Bronya. You have too many Bronyas, or you want more Bronyas, there you go. So it's actually a really welcome change. And then just for me being a PC player, this is a big one. I can't stress this enough. You can hot swap between controller and keyboard on PC. I do not know why Genshin is so outdated that the only way you can change your input is literally going into the settings menu, and then you can change from controller or the keyboard. It should be obvious. It's automatic. That happens with all games. It's still locked to 60 FPS, which I am always going to complain about because there's no reason. The game supports 120 hertz. Genshin supports 120 hertz. You could do a FPS unlocker. Of course, they'll probably get your account banned, but you could use that. There's no reason. I guess there's some exclusivity deal with Apple still on that no one else is allowed to have frame rates beyond 60. I don't know why. It's fucking stupid. But yeah, that's my only real complaint with the PC port. Everything else is pretty solid. I haven't had issues. I haven't had glitches, bugs, etc. I just don't know why in this day and age we are still locked to 60 FPS when you can clearly do more on a fucking phone. Please fix that one day. That's all I ask. Anyways, there's a lot more changes that you could read through here if you want to pause the video and read through them. But it's a lot of changes that Genshin players have been asking for their game for a very long time, and we haven't gotten any of it, but Honkai Star Rail gets all of it. So it's clearly a way of progression that MiHoYo has had from going from Genshin to Honkai, and it just kind of sucks that they don't retroact some of those changes and improvements to Genshin, but it is what it is. Here we are. Anyways, this game is definitely a hit. I enjoyed it a lot. I really recommend that you try it out. I don't think you're going to be disappointed at all. I know the anime art style can be off-putting to some people, and you know, I recognize that. I understand it's not for everybody, but I think because of how this game is designed, it respects your time a lot more, and it's not as much of a time sink as I feel Genshin is. With, like I said, with Honkai, when you come on, you can blow through all your shit within like 10 minutes, dog. Easy. And then you're in and out. You go back on your life and you call it a day because of the auto battle features, because you don't have to run everywhere. You can teleport immediately right in front of the bosses that you want to fight. It's a lot of time-saving conveniences that is really much welcomed in this game. And again, like I said, I know it's not gonna be for everyone, but I really recommend that you just give it like 2 hours, maybe 4 tops, to see if it's your cup of tea. If not, you lose 4 hours, so what? But the game is free. You don't have to spend any money at all, and you get a really solid AAA game for nothing. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Have a great day. Yeah.